Hi. How are you? Looking good. Does anyone know what this is? Any ideas? It has nothing to do with PlayStation. It kind of reminds me of that. I'm going to leave you hanging just for a while. Did you know that we all have a blind spot in our eyes? There's this region in your retina that has no light-sensitive cells, so light arriving at that spot has no connection to the visual parts of your brain. Paradoxically, you can actually see your own blind spot. And this is an eye test. I see people are staring at it. You can't do the test by staring at the screen. But if you're curious, reach out to me after my talk, and I can show you how to do it. It's cool. So hi again. I'm going to talk about biases in product design and how to avoid them. I'm not an expert in cognitive science. It's actually cool that Magdalena had this introductory talk into cognitive science. It kind of serves as an intro to my talk. But over the last 15 years or so of my design career, I was always trying to figure out what really influences our day-to-day decisions in our work, in our daily life, as opposed to what we think influence them. What impacts users to behave in a certain way? Because understanding these unconscious decisions we're making can be critical when it comes to designing products people use. So my goal today is to help you fundamentally rethink what makes you and the people around you tick. And I love this slide, it's kind of cool. So why did I mention blind spots in my intro? It's because biases are like blind spots. You can be unaware of your hidden biases the same way you're unaware of the blind spots in your eyes. And unconscious bias happens automatically. It is triggered by your brain making quick assessments about people and situations influenced by your background, environment, past experience. We are all using unconscious bias to process information. Human beings are faced with more than 10 million bits of information at any given moment. Right now, you're being faced with 10 million bits of information, which you're only able to process about 40, which is not a lot, right? We're not so smart. So what happens is our brain creates shortcuts based on previous knowledge to make assumptions and connect the dots, being very powerfully guided by all the things we expect to be true in the world. Notice this, expect to be true, not true. Human-centered design is a buzzword. Well, not only that. A lot of us are trying to do it, right? How many designers are there here? Designers? How many researchers? Okay, a lot of research. You might be using all this hip methodology like design thinking, or you might be doing design sprints. How many of you are doing design sprints? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. The trick is that doing all this cool methodology does not guarantee you that you're going to end up with the ideal user experience. Why? Because research can be skewed. Research findings can be skewed, and this affects decision-making of a project at any stage. What a shocker, right? So who's affected? In short, everyone. Everyone that's involved in product development cycle. I mean, we're all affected by it, even in our personal lives, but just from a product design perspective, researchers and designers should be aware of these these hidden biases, because it can really affect your work. So what about you guys? Today, when you came into this conference, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of people that you don't know, right? Or maybe you saw someone that you know from before, but you don't really know them really well. For example, I met Merlin this morning. I know him from before, but I don't really know him well, right? So how long does it take before you start evaluating, judging, classifying everybody as, I don't know, smart, dumb, happy, sad, attractive, unattractive, safe, dangerous? I hope there are no dangerous people around here. Or, I don't know, my favorite, designer, developer. You can tell when someone is a designer just by looking at them, right? I mean, you can tell that I'm a designer. I mean, who wears a shirt with birds? Come on, it's just... So we're making all these quick assumptions. And we're making them with ease. Why is that? It's not that you're judgmental or that you don't mean well. You're all good people, right? I know you are, okay? Being able to make all these quick determinations about people you encounter and the situations you're in is critical to our survival. It's built into the fundamental core of your brain's function. And there are hundreds of biases. Marilyn this morning mentioned a lot of them. I'm going to talk about a couple of them that I see happen every day. I see it in my team. I see it in the people that I collaborate with. I see it in myself, okay? I mean, we all have to accept it, right? So, whether you were aware of it or not, when I asked you to look around you, this is what happened. It's called othering. We tend to prefer people who are similar to us and not really like people who are completely different from us. Othering happens when you categorize people based on certain features: gender, ethnicity, work assignments, music taste, whatever. It's also called social categorization. We distinguish groups of people that we belong to, it's called in-group, and don't belong to, out-group. In-group people, we feel very positively about them, right? Because we want to have a positive self-image, right? And we feel negative about out-group people, you know, those guys over there, you know. And it's not just about favoring people. It's also about the fact that we process information about in-group people more thoroughly. So what happens is the understanding of out-group people is more shallow and stereotypical. This is also called us versus them. Maybe you've heard about this. And I see this happen in organizations. I see it happen between designers, developers, between product managers and designers, between upper management and everybody else. The problem with this is that it hinders collaboration, right? And if you're a designer, you have to be aware of this because it affects your understanding of others. So, quick story. I was interviewing this guy for a designer position. And by the way, we are hiring designers, researchers, and UX writers. Hi there. So I was interviewing him, and he said that he left his previous job because he could not really relate to the users of the product he was working on. Basically, he was othering those users. So I find that very interesting because there was no empathy between him and those users. But if you limit yourself to be designing only products for users that you 100% can relate to, then what? You will be designing tools for designers. That's very limiting, I think. Okay, this one here is my favorite. It's so common and very difficult to avoid. It's the super villain of all biases. You probably heard about it. Maybe you can even guess what it is. It's called confirmation bias. Basically, it means that when you have an idea, what you usually do is you just want to find something that proves you are right. Why? Because it hurts to be wrong. We all like to be right. The problem with this is that you have a very limited view, and you're not looking at all of the objective information, right? So I'm sure that this happened a lot with designers. You might be thinking about, you might have a discussion about which user experience is better or what is best practice. And for example, I'm going to say like a stupid example, where to position the call to action button, right? Should it be left aligned, right aligned? And usually when there are opposing opinions, the first thing a designer does is, let me go to Google, I'm going to find proof for my idea, right? And that's what we all do, right? So what happens if we keep ignoring this? That's a question to think about. And this is a problem of the ego. And we're all egotistical at some point. But if you can't stand being wrong, you're going to fall prey to this over and over again. So how can you avoid it? You have to learn to value the truth rather than being right. Seek disagreement and teach your whole team to play the devil's advocate, to hunt for information that disproves what you believe, that find proof that for your hypothesis being wrong, right? You should never ever get attached to your ideas that you can't let it go. And this happens a lot with designers, even with product managers, that you're working on something and it becomes your baby, right? And then at some point you realize something is wrong, but you don't want to kill your baby. It's your baby, right? Or you might be working in a team of designers and stuff happens, you reprioritize, and you have to give your work to somebody else. And then it's like giving away your baby, right? Nobody likes doing that. And always take into account all the viewpoints, not just the ones you like. When I was working on this presentation, my 16-year-old daughter said, "Mom, this is not funny. People do not use memes like this anymore. This is like 10 years old. Come on, don't put this into your presentation." Well, the conclusion is you can never be cool to your teenage kids. So I kind of, okay, whatever. I still think this is funny, and if somebody thinks this is funny, you're part of my in-group people. So what is hindsight bias? Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, you go outside, you look at the sky, and you think, is it going to rain today? Should I take my umbrella with me? And then you decide, okay, I'm not going to take it, it's going to be okay. Of course, later that day, rain starts pouring, you get all wet, and the first thing you say, I knew it. I knew it's going to rain, right? In fact, you did not know, because if you did, you would have taken that umbrella with you, okay? So that's hindsight bias. It's the inclination to see events as being more predictable than they were after they happened. So why does that happen? Because we are funny creatures, right? Human beings have an issue with thinking in time. We are really bad at remembering stuff. This is also called I knew it all along phenomenon. So what we do is we try to create order in time, right? We try to find reasons for stuff that happened. It's the need to explain things, right? That leads us to hindsight bias. In research, this is really important because you might be doing interviews, and when you ask a question to the participant about how they do certain things, how they do certain activities, and why they're doing it, you have to take that with a grain of salt, right? That's not always 100% true. Not that they're lying to you. It's just that they're really bad at remembering stuff. So you have to be careful. Always do observational studies. Okay, this one here, this is just an example that I experienced with a couple of times with product managers. We do a research study, and then afterwards, when we present the victorious research findings, and I'm all excited about them, they say, we knew about this. We did not have to do research for this, right? But that's not true, because they're just influenced by hindsight bias. And I'm looking at you. You know who you are, okay? Have you ever been called antisocial? Because I have. I'm an antisocial introvert standing in front of you. I don't know why, but here I am. Still, I am a social animal like all of you are. And other members of our species are so important to us that nothing else in the physical world can really compete. So what does this mean? It means that we want to look good in front of others, right? I want to look good in front of you. You want to look good in front of everybody. All of the speakers today, they want to look good and smart, like, right? I mean, and whoever says that that's not true is lying, or there's something wrong with him, right? So why is this important? It's important because it affects our behavior and the behavior of everybody else that you work with. It's called social desirability bias. In research, this is extremely important because research participants give you answers to your questions in a way that makes them look good, right? So for example, you might do a usability study, or you might be interviewing a participant, and you want to test a navigation, how easy it is to use a certain navigation. And you notice that they are kind of lost, but they're not reporting it, right? When you ask them, questions, they do not seem to find that an issue. And the reason might be that they think of themselves as tech savvy, so they don't want to, hamper their own image. So what you could do is you could ask a safe question. For example, how would you design this for your mom, right? Because, she's not tech savvy. how would you design this for her? So by asking this safe question, it kind of, you open up the conversation to be more true. Okay, so this one here, really quickly, this circle represents like all the information you need to make a decision in the ideal world. In reality, usually you just take this small piece of information into account. And it can be a design decision, a development decision, a decision whether you want to marry someone, whatever. It's called availability bias. How does it work? It works in a way that you're making decisions based on the ease of how easy it is to retrieve information, right? For example, a product manager might be prioritizing features, okay? One day he hears from a customer, hey, I really want to have a feature X. And that same week, a colleague of his says, you know what, we should include that feature X in our roadmap. And that product manager might be thinking, wow, everybody is asking about this feature. I must include it. But he's not really looking at the whole picture. He's not basing his decision on data, but just on the feeling of how easy it was to remember that. You know, somebody mentioned it to him, somebody else did the same, and he thinks, yep, that's the right thing to do. So we all like to think that we are rational human beings. Some of you might be thinking, I'm not affected by this. You know, I know when I'm biased. Or you might be thinking, I am intelligent enough to know that when this happens and I can avoid it. Sorry to inform you, you're not, okay? And being more intelligent actually means that you are more under the influence of unconscious bias. Why? Because it's easier for you to find reasons for the stuff you do, okay? You're more imaginative. You can find, I did that because of that, but no, you didn't. So what can we actually do? Be more aware of all of these things. Educate yourself, educate your team, advocate for this, go to conferences that talk about it, raise awareness, okay? There's no way you can fix your mind. It's not a matter of if you're biased, it's a matter of when you are biased. If you're human, you are biased. If you're an alien, you might not be. If you're a bear, I don't know if bears are biased. Always challenge your assumptions. Surround yourself with people who are open enough to question your ideas. And I'm so lucky to have my team. They are always challenging each other and my ideas, and thank you for that. Don't just do one usability study. Talk to different stakeholders. Do observational studies. Look at the analytics. Mix and match, right? So I don't usually read from my slides, but I'm going to make an exception. I know that it's bad practice. This is a quote from Daniel Kahneman. He wrote a book, Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a really good book, and I have read a couple of other books. If you're interested, just talk to me afterwards, and I can show you a list of resources. So we are blind to our blindness. We have very little idea of how little we know, and we're not designed to know how little we know. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanja. Is there maybe a question or two? Oh, there's a question.
I'm scared now.
No.
Hi.
Hi.
So it's great to challenge ourselves to keep us honest, right?
I'm sorry.
Great to challenge ourselves to keep us honest.
Yes.
How do you know when there's too much of a challenge going on and it makes us counterproductive?
Well, there's a fine line there, I think. I think that I think you learn to have a feel for these things. Not everybody has that skill, and it's always important to have someone in your team be the facilitator of these things.
Self-awareness is a very big, crucial point of this all.
That's true.
Any other questions about the meaning of life? We kind of hit that stride with the last two speakers, so if you have any thoughts on meaning of life, please email sarah.tubak@infobip.com, especially when you're drunk. I'm going to tell you the meaning of life. No? That's it. Okay, thank you, Sanya. You're free to go. Don't be shy, of course.